Hi folks, welcome to the bonus content on the end of Act 1, Scene 3, and today we are going to be talking about euphemisms. Now, a euphemism is where you use a word or a phrase to avoid using an unpleasant or offensive word. So, for example, when I was little, my cat died. It was run over. Very sad, also quite messy, and the cat had to be buried in the garden, all of that. Except what was said to me was, your cat's gone to a better place, it's gone to be with the angels, it's gone to animal heaven, all of that kind of thing, because I was really quite young. So the very unpleasant reality of my cat's death was then transformed by euphemisms into something that seemed a little bit easier to take. If you say the cat has gone to be at peace, it sounds a lot better than the reality of what actually happened. And we see Macbeth doing this same thing all the way through the play. So when he's talking about the murder of Duncan, he doesn't use the word murder, he uses words like suggestion or image or his desires. In Act 1, Scene 7, he refers to the murder as it, assassination, deed, business, terrible feat. Act 2, Scene 1, the bloody business, it. Act 2, Scene 2, he says, I have done the deed. He talks about what I have done. Act 2, Scene 3, he tells Malcolm that the fountain of your blood is stopped. In Act 3, Scene 1, he refers to Duncan's parricide. And then in Act 3, Scene 2, he tells Lady Macbeth that they have sent Duncan to peace. So we have all of these euphemisms all the way through the first three acts of the play. And at no point does Macbeth use the word murder. Now, this is really interesting because actually, Macbeth, if we were to describe him at the start of the play, we would probably use words like courageous, heroic, but we would also be talking about him as being a killing machine. Remember in Act 1, Scene 2, the captain was telling Duncan all about the battle with the Norwegians and how Macbeth carved his passage through the enemy soldiers. He literally cut down all of the soldiers that stood in his way. And when he got to MacDonald, the traitor, he stuck his sword into MacDonald's belly button, pulled it right up so he disemboweled him. And then he cut his head off and put it on the battlements. Now, that description is the very opposite of euphemism. It is a detailed description of just how brutal Macbeth could be, how violently he could behave. And so it's a bit surprising that when Macbeth is then talking about the murder of Duncan, that he can't actually say the word murder. Now, there's a couple of reasons why this might be. My first kind of idea about this is that Macbeth has intense guilt at killing someone in cold blood. When he's on the battlefield, he's killing to save his country. His violence, his brutality, his relentless bloodlust is legitimized by the state that he is fighting for. And in fact, it's celebrated. He's given the title Thane of Cawdor in order to honour Macbeth for the brutality that he's committed on the battlefield. Killing someone in cold blood, in their sleep, in their bedroom, is very, very different. We also get the sense that Macbeth understands that he's crossing a line. So he's killing his cousin. We know that Duncan refers to Macbeth as his cousin in Act 1, Scene 2. And in terms of the family tree, that is absolutely correct. So to kill a family member is totally different from killing an enemy or a traitor. Duncan is also going to be Macbeth's guest in the castle, and to kill your guest when you should actually look after your guests and protect them and all of that, that is crossing a line. But most importantly, Macbeth is going to be killing his king. And at this time in history, in terms of when Shakespeare was writing the play, there was an idea called the divine right of kings. Kings, they believed, were somehow kind of accepted by God or chosen by God, put on the throne by God, and were invested with divine power, with godly power. So the king was almost becoming God's representative on earth. And to kill the king or the queen, whoever the monarch was really crossing a line, because you weren't just killing a human being, you were also challenging God's authority. Now, we see that historically at the time that Macbeth was being written, because the gunpowder plot had just happened. So you will know on the 5th of November, people in England often remember this. Guy Fawkes is the kind of figurehead for the gunpowder plot, where Catholic plotters decided they were going to blow up Parliament. And so they went down into the kind of rooms underneath Parliament, packed it with gunpowder, and they were going to set up a light so the gunpowder would explode, destroy Parliament, destroy the king, and then they could restore Catholicism to the country. Now, that plot was foiled. It didn't actually happen. The gunpowder was discovered. Guy Fawkes and some other people were arrested and executed and so on. But the reason why that particular crime was taken so incredibly seriously was not just because they planned mass murder, but because one of the people they wanted to murder was God's representative on earth. So it's a challenge to human order, but it's also a challenge to God's order as well. And Macbeth realizes that he is planning, and indeed then does, cross that particular line. Okay, so euphemisms are quite understandable in that context. Macbeth doesn't want to admit to himself, to Lady Macbeth, the full horror of what he is planning to do or what he has just done. Okay, thanks very much for listening, folks. Check out the next video on Act 1, Scene 4.